On the cold and cloudy morning of June 14, 1987, Helena Marinelli walked through the galleries of the Snow Polo Museum of Art with a camera hanging around her neck and a folded tourist map in her hands. The 26-year-old Italian woman had arrived in Brazil just 3 days earlier, fulfilling an old dream of visiting South America and exploring the rich Brazilian culture. Her brown hair was tied in a relaxed ponytail, and she wore a light blue blouse that harmoniously contrasted with her faded jeans. Helena had registered her entry into the museum at 9:15 a.m., as shown in the visitor book, which bore her neat and distinctive handwriting. The Snow Polo Museum of Art, internationally known as MASP, was bustling with the usual activity of a Hawaii busy Monday. Experienced staff were carefully preparing a new exhibition on the second floor, while visitors of all ages wandered, admiring the permanent works in the international collection. Helena appeared especially interested and fascinated by the Brazilian art section, where she meticulously photographed several famous paintings and impressive sculptures. Security guard Marcos Benedetti, who had worked at the museum for 12 years and knew the routine well, distinctly remembered her because the tourist had politely inquired about the museum's hours of operation and whether it was allowed to photograph the displayed artworks freely. The museum's atmosphere breathed culture and sophistication. Visitors from various nationalities walked through the wide corridors, some in organized groups with specialized guides, others exploring the collections individually. Helena stood out subtly among the visitors with her genuine curiosity and interest in every architectural detail of the historic building. She made notes in a small red notebook and occasionally consulted a tourist guide in Italian that she carried in her brown leather bag. Around 10:30 a.m., Helena was seen by the cleaning staff, Mrs. Senia Vasconcelos, near the restrooms on the first floor. Senia, who had worked at MASP for 8 years and was familiar with the regular visitors' habits, recalled that Helena seemed to be looking for something specific, frequently consulting the museum map and attentively observing the directional signs placed around the building. The Italian tourist had inquired about other areas open to visitors besides the main galleries. The first floor of MASP housed the primary works in the permanent collection, including pieces by renowned Brazilian artists and works from the international collection. Helena spent nearly an hour photographing and observing every detail of paintings by Portinari, Cavalcanti, and other national art masters. She showed particular interest in the techniques used by the artists, comparing them to similar works she had seen in European museums. Around 11 a.m., Helena was last seen near the elevator to the basement, an area where the museum's storage, administrative, rooms, and technical departments were located. The cleaning staff member, Mrs. Senia Vasconcelos, later reported seeing a woman with Helena's physical characteristics descending the service stairs that led directly to the building's basement. When questioned in detail by the police, Senia explained that she found it quite strange that an ordinary visitor was wandering freely in that restricted area, but she was busy with her routine tasks and did not give much importance to the incident. At the time, the mysterious disappearance of Helena was only officially noticed late that afternoon, as the museum was preparing to close its doors to the public. Her name was clearly recorded in the visitor log, but there was absolutely no corresponding record of her exit. Receptionist Julia Castro Gomez, responsible for controlling access, found this situation strange and immediately reported the irregularity to the administrative director, Paolo Torriani, who promptly ordered an initial search of the main corridors, restrooms, and exhibition rooms. But the Italian tourist was simply nowhere to be found. The concern grew significantly when it was discovered that Helena had left her main bag at the museum's cloakroom, taking only a small camera and some basic documents. Her belongings included cash, international credit cards, personal medications, and gifts she had bought for her family in Italy. The The discovery of these personal items immediately ruled out the possibility of her voluntarily leaving the premises. Director Paolo Toriani, a seasoned 52-year-old man who had worked in MASP's administration for almost 2 decades, made the responsible decision to contact the police authorities immediately. He understood the gravity of the situation and the need for swift action. Paolo was familiar with every part of the museum and knew it would be virtually impossible for someone to disappear without leaving any trace in such a controlled and monitored environment. Helena's family, concerned by the total absence of news and their daughter's usual silence, urgently contacted the Italian embassy in Brasilia the day after her disappearance. The case was officially filed with the local police as a missing persons report, and the standard investigative procedures for situations involving foreign citizens began immediately. Detective Augusto Figueiredo, an experienced professional with over 20 years of service in the São Paulo Civil Police, personally took charge of the investigation and began rigorously following all the necessary technical procedures. All staff members who had worked at the museum that specific day were thoroughly questioned, including security guards, receptionists, and cleaning and maintenance personnel. Each testimony was carefully recorded and analyzed for potential clues or inconsistencies. The night security guard, Mr. Rodrigo Coimbra, a veteran with 15 years of service at MASP, categorically stated that he had carried out his usual rounds the previous night before the disappearance and had noticed nothing suspicious or out of the ordinary. The security cameras available at the time were technologically limited and did not adequately cover all areas of the building, especially the basement, administrative rooms, and secondary corridors, creating significant blind spots in the monitoring system. The first investigative suspicions naturally turned to potential personal, financial, or emotional problems that might have motivated Helena to disappear voluntarily. A thorough investigation revealed that she was carrying approximately $800 and some Brazilian cruzados, a reasonably sufficient amount to survive independently for a few weeks. However, her Italian passport and official documents remained untouched at the hotel where she was staying, in the bustling central area of São Paulo. The hotel manager, Mr. Gabriel Abrantes, a cordial middle-aged man with extensive experience in serving foreign tourists, confirmed in detail that Helena had left calmly on the morning of June 14th, saying she would visit some important museums in the city and return in time for dinner. Her room remained exactly as she had left it, with clothes carefully folded and personal items neatly spread out on the comfortable bed. An incomplete handwritten letter, affectionately addressed to her parents in Milan, was found on the knitstand in her room. In it, Helena enthusiastically described her extremely positive impressions of São Paulo, praising the hospitality of the Brazilians and mentioning that she was genuinely eager to learn more about Brazilian art. The tone of the letter was cheerful and optimistic, with no indication of personal problems or any intention to disappear voluntarily. The investigation dramatically intensified with the arrival of Helena's concerned family members in Brazil. Her parents, Giuseppe and Maria Marinelli, respected merchants from Milan, made an emotional and desperate appeal through the local São Paulo press. The case gained significant media attention in Brazil, with daily reports about the intriguing mystery of the disappearance of the Italian tourist at the famous MASP. Colorful posters featuring Helena's smiling photo were widely distributed around the Paulista Avenue region and major tourist spots in the capital. During the first intense weeks of investigation, several plausible theories emerged about Helena's fate. One suggested that she could have been the victim of kidnapping for extortion purposes, considering that she was visibly carrying foreign money and was clearly identifiable as an international tourist. Another theory proposed by investigators was that she had suffered some type of fatal accident within the museum itself, and her body might have been hidden in some hard-to-access or rarely visited area. Inspector Vinicius Braganca, a recognized expert in complex missing persons cases, was specifically assigned to assist in the investigation. He immediately ordered a thorough and systematic search of all the premises of MASP, including areas usually restricted to the general public. Damp basements, dusty attics, maintenance rooms, organized storage areas, and even ventilation ducts were searched inch by inch by specialized teams. Highly trained sniffer dogs were used to detect potential suspicious odors or human traces, but absolutely nothing was found during these exhaustive searches. The detailed interviews with staff members revealed some interesting and potentially relevant aspects for the investigation. Receptionist Julia Castro Gomez specifically mentioned having noticed a middle-aged man observing Helena intently, seemingly suspicious, during the morning of her disappearance. She described him as someone well-dressed and elegant, about 40 years old, with well-groomed gray hair and a distinguished bearing. However, this mysterious man was never effectively identified or located by the police, despite focused investigative efforts. The clues were accumulating, but the mystery persisted. If you are trying to solve this case with me, leave your theory in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe. Security Technician Miguel Krogiger, a competent professional responsible for maintaining the museum's electronic systems, revealed potentially crucial information. The basement alarm system had experienced an unexplained technical failure during the night immediately preceding the disappearance. According to him, a specific motion sensor had become completely inactive for about 2 hours between midnight and 2 a.m. The malfunction was initially attributed to ordinary problems with the old wiring, but the timing coincidence raised legitimate suspicions about a possible intentional sabotage of the system. Another intriguing and potentially significant detail emerged through the careful testimony of tour guide Fernanda Grimaldi, an experienced employee who guided organized groups at the museum. She mentioned that Helena had specifically asked about the museum's underground areas, showing genuine curiosity about the complex architecture and internal structure of the historic building. Fernanda briefly explained the organized storage areas and technical rooms, but emphasized that these areas were strictly restricted to the general public. Helena apparently reacted with visible disappointment, commenting that she would have loved to explore the fascinating, behind-the-scenes areas of such an important and internationally respected museum. As the months inexorably passed, the case of Helena Marinelli gradually faded from the focus of Brazilian media. The official investigation continued methodically for another full year, but without any significant discoveries or concrete clues regarding her whereabouts. The devastated family reluctantly returned to Italy, maintaining regular contact with the Brazilian authorities through official diplomatic channels at the Italian embassy. Giuseppe Marinelli sent heartfelt letters regularly to Detective Figueiredo, always hopeful that new clues or information would miraculously surface. MASP implemented new, stricter security measures after the traumatic incident. Access to the basement was severely restricted, and a more modern and comprehensive camera system was carefully installed. Staff members received specific and detailed training to closely monitor visitors and report any suspicious or unusual behavior immediately. The traditional visitor sign-in and sign-out log was replaced by a computerized, more rigorous and reliable access control system for the museum. In the following years, several people reported having seen Helena in different Brazilian cities. There were alleged sightings in Santos, Campinas, Ribeirão Preto, and even in Rio de Janeiro. All of these reports were carefully investigated by the police, but none proved consistent or truthful. The police even exhumed an unidentified female body found near the Garaparanga Reservoir, but forensic tests definitively confirmed that it was not the missing Italian tourist. In 1992, exactly 5 years after the mysterious disappearance, the case was officially closed by the São Paulo Civil Police. The investigation had fully exhausted all available technical possibilities and resources at the time. The final detailed report pointed to three main and plausible hypotheses: voluntary, disappearance for unknown personal reasons, kidnapping with subsequent homicide and corpse concealment, or a fatal accident with criminal concealment of the remains. Daily. Life at MASP continued as usual in the following decades. New employees were hired. Temporary exhibitions were regularly held, and literally thousands of visitors passed through the historic corridors of the museum. Some older employees would quietly mention the enigmatic case of the Italian tourist, but the story gradually turned into an urban legend among the institution's more veteran workers. In 2020, during preparations for a major structural renovation of the museum, the administration decided to completely modernize the outdated electrical system and deteriorating plumbing in the basement. The company contracted for the job, Constrix's Zimmermann Licoteta, began the specialized work in January of that year. The engineer in charge, Dr. Thiago Newman, planned a full and modern renovation of the old underground facilities. The renovation proceeded normally during the first months of 2020. In March, when the global COVID-19 pandemic drastically interrupted cultural activities, the works were temporarily suspended. MASP remained closed to the public for several consecutive months, allowing the infrastructure work to continue at a reduced pace, strictly following all health protocols set by the competent authorities. It was precisely in September 2020 that the shocking discovery was made, which would completely change the course of the story. While carefully demolishing an old wall in the basement, the bricklayer, Kyle Hartman, noticed that his sledgehammer produced a distinctly hollow sound in a specific section of the structure. Immediately suspecting a serious structural problem, he promptly reported the situation to the engineer Nian, who authorized a more detailed investigation. When a small exploratory hole was made in the suspicious wall, Kaio came across an empty space that did not appear on any of the official architectural blueprints of the museum. Using a powerful flashlight, he carefully observed what seemed to be a small room or hidden compartment. On the dusty floor of this restricted space, a whitish shape immediately caught his concerned attention. The bricklayer immediately stopped working and urgently reported the discovery to the museum's administration. The current director of MASP, Dr. Leonardo Yamamoto, was immediately notified of the situation. Recognizing the potential seriousness of the discovery, he quickly contacted the civil police and the Institute of Legal Medicine. A specialized criminal investigation team was immediately sent to thoroughly examine the discovery. When the forensic experts carefully entered the hidden compartment, they confirmed the presence of human remains. The bones were arranged in such a way that it clearly suggested the person had died right in that confined spot. Near the skeleton, personal items were found, including an Italian-made camera, a silver chain with a heart-shaped pendant, and preserved fragments of light blue fabric. The most revealing discovery was an Italian passport in the name of Helena Marinelli, perfectly preserved inside a sturdy leather bag. Criminal expert Dr. Livia Takarashi meticulously conducted the preliminary analysis of the remains. She scientifically determined that the remains belonged to a young woman, estimated to be between 25 and 30 years old. The absence of obvious signs of violence on the bones clearly indicated that the death had not resulted from direct physical trauma or assault. The final position of the skeleton suggested that the person had been sitting, leaning against the wall before dying, possibly waiting for help that never came. The compartment where Helena was found measured approximately 2 meters by 1.5 meters, with a height of about 1.80 meters. It was an artificially created space between two structural walls, likely the result of an old architectural modification. That had been poorly documented. There was no proper ventilation, and the only opening was a small crack at the top of the wall. absolutely insufficient to allow an adult person to escape. The investigation was immediately reopened under the supervision of Detective Bruno Sasek, a recognized expert in old and complex cases. He ordered a detailed analysis of all the evidence found at the site. The forensic laboratory confirmed that the camera still contained a partially exposed film. The carefully revealed photographs showed images of the works of art at MASP perfectly, consistent with Helena's activities on the day of her disappearance. A thorough examination of the passport revealed that it was in perfect condition, protected by the leather bag inside the dry environment of the compartment. The identification was definitively confirmed through dental records obtained from the family in Italy. There were absolutely no doubts left. The remains were those of Helena Marinelli, the missing Italian tourist from 33 years ago. The forensic analysis indicated that Helena had survived for an indeterminate period inside the compartment before succumbing, probably due to progressive dehydration and a gradual lack of oxygen. The absence of signs of struggle or injuries suggested that she had entered the space voluntarily or by accident and was later unable to exit on her own. The investigative team carefully reconstructed the possible events of a fateful morning. In June 1987, Helena, motivated by genuine curiosity about the fascinating architecture of the museum, had gained unauthorized access to the basement. For some reason, which remains partially mysterious, she entered the hidden compartment, possibly exploring what she thought was a secret passage or historical room. Once inside, she tragically discovered that she could not get out on her own. The tragedy of Helena Marinelli deeply affected the Italian community in São Paulo and emotionally reverberated in international media. Her parents, Giuseppe and Maria, now deceased, never learned the true fate of their beloved daughter. The case brought to light important issues regarding security in public spaces and the urgent need for comprehensive mapping of historical buildings. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. If you liked the case, click like and write in the comments where you are listening from. Also, enjoy watching the next video.